Have you got good ideas for our future videos? Well, every one of our videos has the topic suggestion form linked in the description. So when you think of a good idea, you can let us know. So, who is Chesa Boudin? Well, the first thing that anyone will tell you about Chesa Boudin is that he's the son of Chesa Boudin and David Gilbert, both of whom were members of the radical left-wing organisation Weather Underground. And both of Boudin's parents were convicted of murder after they acted as getaway drivers in the Brinks robbery of 1981, when Boudin was just 14 months old. In fact, it's something that Boudin mentions a lot in interviews, the fact that while both of his parents were convicted of the same crime, his mother received a 20-year sentence and is now out of jail, while his father got 75 years to life and is still in jail 40 years later. Boudin was subsequently raised in Chicago by adoptive parents, who were also members of Weather Underground. Boudin then won a Rhodes Scholarship to Oxford University, then went to Yale Law School, and today Boudin is the district attorney for San Francisco. In 2019, Boudin ran a close race against Susie Loftus, winning the second round with just 50.35% of the runoff vote. Boudin was widely considered to be the most left-leaning of all of the candidates, was endorsed by Bernie Sanders, and ran as a self-described progressive prosecutor. However, Boudin was deeply unpopular with the San Francisco police, who spent $750,000 on anti-Boudin ads. Anyway, the reason we're doing a video on Boudin is because he's had a rocky time already. His progressive policing policies have been blamed for rising crime rates in San Francisco, and he's currently facing two separate recall efforts. The first one was started on March 4th by a group called the Committee Supporting the Recall of District Attorney Chesa Boudin, led by Richie Greenberg, who previously ran for mayor as a Republican. The second started on April 28th by a group called the San Franciscans for Public Safety, led by two Democrat activists, Mary Young and Andrea Shorter. According to an interview with the San Francisco Examiner, Young and Shorter started the second recall effort because they didn't like that the first one had become a classic partisan conservatives versus progressives. They thought the recall effort against Boudin ought to be bipartisan. Essentially, you shouldn't be put off recalling Boudin just because you're a Democrat. It's worth noting that both Young and Shorter previously supported Susie Loftus for DA in the 2019 election, and presumably they plan on reinstating her if they get their way. Boudin, for his part, has dismissed both of these recall efforts as politically motivated, accusing the Democrat one of relying on false and disproven Republican talking points, and insisting that the old approaches didn't make us safer. They ignored root causes of crime and perpetuated mass incarceration. Anyway, according to San Francisco law, any recall effort has 160 days to garner the signatures of at least 10% of registered voters, or 51,325 voters. That means that the deadline for the first recall effort, led by Greenberg, was Wednesday the 11th of August. Now, Greenberg's effort fell short by just 1,714 votes, but the other one, led by those two Democrat activists, is very likely to succeed. The Republican effort came close, but was relatively underfunded. They only fundraised a total of $280,000, which sounds like a lot, but given that, according to political consultant Jim Ross, you want about $6 per signature, that's not quite enough to guarantee you a result. The Democrat one, on the other hand, has raised well over $700,000, and they've enjoyed a free PR boost thanks to Greenberg's original campaign. This means that even though Boudin escaped this one, chances are he'll be recalled later in the year anyway. So now the big question is, should Boudin be recalled? Are his progressive policies actually responsible for the alleged increase in crime? Well, let's start with Boudin's actual policies. Boudin's first policy, SB 394, was to give primary caregiver parents charged with misdemeanor or non-violent felonies, anti-crime classes and education instead of jail. Presumably, the rationale behind this policy is that it's a bad long-term idea to lock up these parents, because then you end up with a whole load of parentless kids who are more likely to commit more crimes in the future. Boudin's second policy was to replace cash bail with a risk-based system. Essentially, cash bail is when you pay money to get someone out of jail. Let's say that I'm arrested for theft. Now, before I actually get to trial, I'll be kept in jail, essentially to stop me from running away or committing more crimes in the meantime. And that is, unless I can pay the bail. And then the money is used as leverage to keep me from running away. And Boudin has scrapped this system. So instead, if you commit a minor crime, in most cases, you can go home pre-trial for free. If you're deemed particularly risky, i.e. there's a high chance that you'll commit more crime or run away, then you might be required to post bail, but the default is that you won't have to. This policy was basically intended to reduce the prison population, and it does seem to have worked. Boudin has cut the San Francisco jail population by nearly 40%, from about 1,200 in January of 2020 to just 750 in March of 2021. This is also because, during the pandemic, Boudin and his team went through the prison population and released a whole load of inmates convicted of minor crimes, in an attempt to prevent jails from becoming COVID hotspots. The last policy we'll mention is that Boudin scrapped 3 sentence enhancement mechanisms: Proposition 8, Prior Strike, and the STEP Act. Proposition 8 meant longer sentences for those with prior convictions. Prior Strike, known as the 3-strike rule, mandates a life sentence for anyone previously convicted of 2 serious or violent crimes. And STEP means longer sentences for those with drug afflictions. Boudin scrapped all 3 of these, and basically said that they only apply in special cases. So what impact have Boudin's policies had? Well, the answer is mixed. In 2020, overall crime was down about 23% compared to 2019, but numbers did fluctuate within specific categories of crime, and obviously the pandemic would have a massive impact. Rape, robbery, assault, human trafficking, and larceny theft all decreased, while there was a 35% rise in motor vehicle theft and a 49% rise in burglary. Homicides also increased from 41 in 2019 to 48 in 2020. Representing a 17% increase. Now, these are larger increases than in other cities, but whether these numbers can be attributed to Boudin's policies is debated. Boudin suggested that it could be caused by the economic desperation of the pandemic. San Francisco Police Chief William Scott blamed it on the fact that Boudin wasn't holding repeat offenders in custody, and unfortunately for Boudin, there have been a couple of cases where this is clearly true. In April 2020, Boudin's office released repeat offender Troy McAllister, and in December, McAllister struck and killed 2 pedestrians while driving a stolen vehicle. Also in December, repeat offender Jerry Lyons was arrested for driving a stolen car while intoxicated, but Boudin decided not to hold him. Then in February, Lyons ran a red light in a stolen Ford Explorer and killed a pedestrian. The problem for Boudin is that even if he's right in theory that the US needs to end its ridiculous incarceration rates and move to a more long-term, evidence-based system, once 3 innocent civilians have died due in part to your relaxed sentencing laws, you're going to be in for a tough ride politically. And it seems that these 2 cases have really animated the recall efforts. As we said at the start, we don't yet know how the recalls are going, but it's not looking good for Boudin, regardless of who's right on the policies. We'll be sure to keep you updated as this story plays out, so subscribe to the channel for more updates on stories like this one. Also, as I said at the start, we're always looking for new video topic ideas for this channel as well as our 3 others. So when you see a story you want us to explain, jump on the form and let us know. Also, be sure to subscribe to all 4 channels for the latest updates, as well as subscribing here for more videos like the one you've just watched. All of the other channels, by the way, are linked below. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that is in the description.